Get this right. Yeah, it is another episode of the Autumn Windbags. RJ Clifford flying solo. Let's have some fun today. Soto's got his hands full, so I'll be handling this on my own. Both hands on the steering wheel, foot on the gas pedal, full throttle. Holy shit, good golly, Miss Molly, do we have a lot to talk about today. Last night, thought I was going to have just a regular old date night with the wife. When you've got two working parents and a kid, you kind of get the date nights in when you can, and we do it on Tuesdays. And oh my God, did MMA or NFL Twitter go crazy on Tuesday. That's where we'll start. Maxx Crosby was supposed to go to the Ravens for 2 first-round picks. Didn't happen. We all kind of, in our own way, started to kind of get through it. Like Soto was already just full on like, fuck him, I'm over it. You know, don't ever date Soto and break up with him because he is an angry ex. I was kind of more like, this sucks. I think the team's better with him than with 2 first-round picks. Max is more valuable to the Raiders than I think anywhere else. What are the odds that these 2 first-round picks, no matter who we get, will equal the production of Maxx Crosby? Right? Probably not going to happen. And my big thing was like, why can't we just hold on to our good players? Like, why can't just good guys that we draft, we happen to just completely nail an awesome player? Why can't we just keep them? Why do they always disappear while they're still in their prime? Every single awesome player the Raiders draft and have goes somewhere else in their prime. And I was tired of it. I was sick of it. That was my big take. That was my big feeling about the whole situation. But then we find out Ravens back out due to a failed physical in their eyes. So there's a whole lot of ways to go with this. First, let's get the facts. Let's get what's been written out there. This is via Adam Schefter. My understanding is that there were multiple doctors that reviewed Maxx Crosby's MRI scans. There were doctors that examined him, including Dr. Daniel Cooper. He's a very well-respected, I believe, orthopedist that a lot of NFL teams use. The Dallas Cowboys doctor that performed surgery on Patrick Mahomes and Malik Neighbors. Many teams and players rely on Dr. Cooper's expertise, and Dr. Cooper was one of the doctors that reviewed the images where the Ravens then felt compelled to back out of the trade. Right? So that's one doctor. You have the manager, the agent for Maxx Crosby in a pinned tweet. CJ LeBoy, right? Pinned tweet. Very top of his Twitter. He wants everybody to see it. He says, Max continues to be on track in his recovery, and if anything is ahead of schedule, according to his surgeon, Dr. Neil Elatrache, Max remains on track to return during the offseason program and will undoubtedly return as the dominant game wrecker he has been the past 7 seasons. So, this is where we're at. The doctor that the Ravens used said, or we don't know exactly what he said, but he was who the Ravens used to say, no, Maxx Crosby isn't ready. And the Raiders, the doctor that did the surgery on Maxx Crosby says everything's going ahead schedule. He was on crutches 6 weeks ago. It is a full meniscus repair, which is different than a meniscus shave. Like you can do they're both major surgeries, but you can do kind of a minor-ish surgery to shave the meniscus. And it's a lot easier to recover from that, a lot less brutal of a surgery, but there's a higher chance of things going wrong later. It's not a full repair. It's kind of like more of a Band-Aid. Crosby, and this is a good thing, did the full meniscus repair. So it's going to be out for longer, but there's less chance of it getting worse down the road. And so as a 28-year-old who still wants to play for several years and just signed a 3-year deal with the Raiders, you want that. You want, let's take some time to heal, more time to heal now, so he's ready to go moving forward. But this oozes the Ravens looking at Maxx Crosby and then looking at Trey Hendrickson and saying, let's get a guy who's maybe 80% good as Max and keep our 2 first-round picks. That's obviously what seems the most plausible, the most obvious, the standard scenario. And I think that's where almost all of Raider Nation is going. Thank you, True Raider, for the super chat. Ravens tucked it in. #Flock Nation. Yeah. They tucked and run. They tucked like Wild Bill from Silence of the Lambs. Would you fuck me? I'd fuck me. Just looking in the mirror. Tucked it. That is the most likely scenario. And I think that's what most people are thinking. And in fairness, there's some context here. part of me, a little part of me, not a big part of me, but the evil inner part of me is kind of impressed. It's kind of impressed. I would want the GM and the owner and the front office of my team to do whatever slimy, disgusting, underhanded, black market, borderline illegal moves I can to do whatever's best for the team and to build the best franchise and best players possible. And that's what it looks like the Ravens did. You have that little window, right? Like the new league year started an hour and 12 minutes ago, right? Up until that moment, nothing's official. It's just like, here's a contract. It's executed 4 p.m. Eastern, March 11th, right? And if the Ravens had this out and they, whether it was something as black and white as they realized, oh shit, we can get a guy about 80% as good, 3 years older, but we can get pretty close to good Maxx Crosby level production without giving away 2 firsts. Fuck the Raiders. Let's make something up. Let's have Dr. Nick from The Simpsons. Hi, everybody. Have him do the exam and say, nope, he's not good to go. We got to bounce. Or it's still a real possibility that Maxx Crosby's knee is worse than many people believe. That's a possibility. That's not out of the realm of possibility that Maxx Crosby's knee after, because you want multiple. Why do you think doctors and people who have situations or medical issues, they get different doctors take different looks, right? The doctor that did Maxx Crosby surgery, I'm not saying insinuating he'd be dishonest, but of course he wants to make the surgery sound as great as possible. He's the one that did the surgery. That's like asking the guy who sold you a used Volkswagen Scirocco, how good's the car? It's like, oh, it's great. Oh, yeah. It's that rust on the bottom. No. That's just red paint because they like the design. Oh, those are speed holes. It makes the car go faster. Like, so I'll just belong to the little old lady that drove it to church once a week, and that's it, right? Of course, he's going to want to paint the best picture possible for the surgery. So getting a second, potentially objective second opinion isn't outrageous, isn't wrong. You want multiple opinions because different doctors have different motivations, right? Different doctors have different motivations. Maybe the second doctor told the Ravens the surgery was trash. I looked under there and there was a fender in his knee. I can't believe they fucked this up so bad because maybe he wants that doctor's gig. That's a possibility. I'm just saying, I'm not saying these are most likely scenarios. I'm saying doctors are human beings. We have to stop treating doctors and teachers and politicians and lawyers as if they're like sanctified bodies. As if, just because you have a medical degree, you no longer have normal human motivations and willing to do whatever it takes to succeed in life, right? That's why you get multiple opinions. And here's the other part of this. I completely forgot about this until Bill Barnwell of ESPN wrote it in his column. Remember Roger Saffold in 2014? This was 12 years ago. The Raiders signed offensive lineman Roger Saffold to a 5-year, $42.5 million contract in 2014. That was the biggest guard deal in NFL history at the time. And it wasn't a good deal. And so they did all this work, exact same thing. They signed him, made it happen. And then when he came in for a physical, because he had shoulder issues, the Raiders opted out. The Raiders pulled 12 years ago what the Ravens just pulled 24 hours ago. Less than 24 hours ago. Now, again, it's not exactly apples to apples. Saffold had like a legit shoulder injury. The next season, he played like half the season, had to do another shoulder surgery like that, right? So it's like, it's not exactly apples to apples. We'll find out next season if Max's knee is still messed up or not. And if he misses part of the season, needs another surgery, like that's still all up in the air. I'm saying this isn't as black and white as a lot of people are making out to be. And I know Raider Nation just wants to go like pitchforks and torches and say, fuck the Ravens, you screwed us. It's just there's so many layers to it. Because, again, part of me respects the Ravens for like, I don't care if Raider Nation's mad at us. I don't care if this is borderline fraud. We want to do what's best for the team. I would have loved it if the Raiders did something like this. Imagine if they were trying to sign some like Kansas City Chief And we knew all along that we weren't going to sign him. We're going to back out of his physical. We're going to make him say he failed his physical. And then the Chiefs start acting as if this high-priced free agent is leaving, right? They're getting ready to spend the draft picks, and they're spending the extra cap space, and they're doing business as if this player is leaving, and they're getting capital back. And if we pulled a fast one on the Chiefs, I'd be the first one on this show to be like, yes, I love our Raiders front office. Did the right thing, and you fucked the Raiders, fuck the Chiefs right in the ass. That'd be great. I'd be rooting for it. I'd be cheering for that shit. That's the kind of drama I really like. So, again, because it happened to the Raiders, I don't like it. And I do think the prevailing wisdom is that it's somewhere in, like, there's some gray area to it, but I think it's more the Ravens got cold feet. I think it's more the Ravens say, hey, we can get another defensive end for just $60 million guaranteed, keep our 2 draft picks, and we'll be better off. I think that's most likely what happened, right? So now moving on, what's next for Maxx? 3 possibilities. Someone else is going to trade for Maxx for something comparable. Maxx stays for the long duration, or Maxx gets traded sometimes like after the June 1st deadline, which will change things contract-wise because it's going to depend, which team comes in, their cap situation, their draft capital, etc. Now, I don't know about you guys, but all members of Raider Nation kind of treated this Maxx Crosby trade in different ways. Like I said, Soto was straight up like, fuck that guy, moving on. He's a piece of shit. I hate him. We're better off without him, right? Like, he made peace right away. Like, I'm impressed. Like, I can tell Soto's lost some close people in his lives because he moves on from a relationship like that. He's pretty good. I was a little less that. Like I said, I think the Raiders are still better off with Maxx than those first two draft picks, those 2 first rounders. I really do. I'm hoping he sticks around, and he certainly can. Here's Albert Breer on the situation. Maxx Crosby was in the Raiders building at 6 a.m. this morning to resume rehab, and the team brass reached out to him immediately after the trade died yesterday. General feeling, Crosby's a Raider. Let's move forward. Trade calls come, more will come, but that's where things are. This Maxx Crosby situation is salvageable now, and it was salvageable 24 hours ago. It was salvageable a week ago. It was salvageable a month ago. It's always been that situation. This hasn't been a scorched earth, nothing can be done situation with Maxx Crosby. He has business relationships with Jim Gray. He's very close friends with Mark Davis. There's a brand new head coach coming in. There's reasons for optimism. He wasn't even going to leave Las Vegas. He said he's not going to sell his house. His family's going to stay there. He's still going to be a Las Vegas-in, a Nevada-in, even though he'd be playing in Baltimore. It's always been salvageable, and this only makes it more salvageable. It might have been awkward this morning at 6 a.m. I can imagine like Max's key card not working, at the front gate. Like, knocks on the door. Hey, Steve, or whatever the security guy's name is. I know I said goodbye, but I'm back. Can I get a new security card, please? I like to get my workout on. It'd be kind of weird. But it's salvageable, man. I think this is a learning lesson for Maxx Crosby a little bit, too, where it's like sometimes it's better to, the devil you know versus the devil you don't. I've said multiple times, and I mean it, and it is true. And I dare any one of you guys to say it's not true. No person, no carbon-based life form on planet Earth has more of a right to complain about the Raiders' ineptitude than Maxx Crosby. Nobody. Nobody is given more. Nobody has worked harder. Nobody has produced more. And nobody has been failed by the Raiders more than Maxx Crosby. Not Mark Davis, not John Spytek, not Tom Brady, not Clint Kubiak, not Derek Carr, not Josh Jacobs, not Ashton Genty, not Brock Bowers. Nobody has more of a right to complain about the Raiders' ineptitude than Maxx Crosby. He has every reason because they have failed him when all he has done is produce and work his tail off. And you know what? If every now and then our superstar defensive end gets a little emo, so be it. That's what happens with superstars. They're allowed to get a little emo because they produce, because they're good. Like you deal with that sometimes, right? You have a supermodel wife. Yeah, you're going to spend a little extra money on her hair. You're going to have to listen to her talk about her favorite Bravo shows for a while. But she's a great mom. She's super hot, and you deal with it. Like you paid that price. With Maxx Crosby, maybe you can learn the grass isn't always greener. Right? At least you're in a fan base that loves you. At least you're in an organization that loves you. The Ravens did him dirty. They don't give a shit. Hopefully this helps Max kind of come down to earth a little bit. And also maybe it helps the Raiders kind of realize what they could have lost, right? It's one thing to think of a relationship that's over and, like, okay, it'd be so much better if I had this freedom and I can do what I want. But then when you start seeing her car drive away with all her boxes of belongings in the back, it kind of hits you a little more real. Be an eye-opener for all parties involved. And this isn't a situation where Spytech or Tom Brady or Mark Davis or whoever is like officially signing away whatever we do with Maxx Crosby. It's still not a take what you can get for him deal. It's still not that situation because the Raiders aren't going to get the same deal anywhere else. Maxx Crosby, in the eyes of some, is damaged goods. Also, time has shifted, right? That first wave of free agency is over. So a lot of the other teams that would have tried to get Maxx Crosby either spent a big chunk of their cap or they signed players that, they wanted to because they know they're not getting Maxx Crosby. The situation's different now, right? It's not Black Friday anymore where people are just shopping. Like it's so it's not impossible, but it's not the same situation anymore. So this isn't all right, well, I guess we got to take what we can get. We'll just take a second round and half a pizza because we got to move on for Maxx Crosby. No. I didn't like just 2 firsts to begin with from the Ravens in this deal. I thought it should have been 2 firsts and a good player. I didn't think 2 firsts was enough for Maxx Crosby. Not for what he means to the Raiders. He means more here than anywhere else. So no, you don't move on unless you get a better deal. I wouldn't be happy with it unless they got a better deal. I made peace with the 2 firsts for the Ravens, which could have been far worse, right? 14th overall. Normally teams that think they're one win away from one really good player away from winning a Super Bowl are picking in the 20s. You know what I mean? 14 was a good spot. That's a spot where, like, if Simpson's still on the board and there's some team in the 20s super horny for him, we trade down for a haul, right? Like it's a good spot, number 14. You still get Fernando Mendoza, and then we got, maybe striking distance for a quarterback needy team. It's a good spot. Also for Max, aren't you glad they pulled you from those last 2 games now? Otherwise, you'd be 2 weeks further removed from being healthy. God only knows how much more damage you would have added playing those last 2 games. Thank you, Jackson Dart, for being an awesome, you're my favorite quarterback in the NFL until we sign Fernando Mendoza, because the Giants can then go win the last 2 games and the Raiders now get number 1 overall. So Max, I've always appreciated how competitive you are and how in the zone you are and how you don't want to be pulled off of the field. You have to be pulled scratching and clawing, kicking and screaming, like seeing Maxx Crosby's fingernails on the turf as he's like, no, I want to play. Like, I like that. That's good. I don't mind you getting pissed that you're getting pulled, but can we all sit down as adults and admit it was the right move? Can we all admit that it was really smart for the Raiders to pull you and have you do a full meniscus repair that either A, you didn't hurt more and got started earlier on your rehab, or B, it might be as bad as the Ravens doctor thinks it is. That's still a possibility. And thank God it's not worse because you pulled in those last 2 games. Let's admit it. So, a couple other things. Maxx Crosby's contract. This is important to note. as we talk about him potentially getting traded again. He's due $29 million in fully guaranteed salary for 2027 on Friday, this Friday, 2 days from now, Friday. So one of three things is likely to happen. Maxx and Raiders will push back the deadline. 2, he'll get traded before then, or he'll get paid and start this season for the Raiders. $29 million fully guaranteed after Friday. So again, it's not impossible for him to be traded after Friday, but it completely gums up the works and changes things drastically. So there's, like all things in life, there's downsides and upsides of all this shit that happened, right? We'll start with the negative so we can end with the positive. And then I want to get to Geno Smith here in a little bit. We still got free agency to get to. I think the draft strategy is exactly the same now. All that we're going to get to. The downsides are the Raiders are scrambling a little bit. The Raiders have the cap space to be able to reabsorb Maxx Crosby contract. Like, thank God Tom Telesco 2 seasons ago and John Spytek this season hoarded cap space like Gollum and his precious. Thank God they did that. Because there's maybe 3 teams in the entire NFL that can be like, oh yeah, we have $60 million in cap moving forward in 2 seasons, right? Like we have $30 million in cap space this season. We didn't know we'd have to absorb that we can just absorb, which they're able to do. Now, it's like roughly $35 million a year, right? It's not exact, but roughly $35 million a year. The Raiders now need to kind of figure that out because they thought they'd have $35 million free. They can absorb it, but it changes the equation. Having all that extra shit, right? Like they're kind of floundering a little bit. Another downside, they had big plans for those 2 first rounders. Huge plans for those 2 first rounders. Hopefully trading down that number 14 overall pick, get some more picks. But let's focus on the upside because I think there's far more upside in keeping Maxx than losing Maxx. Number one, just the simple Maxx is back. Just the production Maxx Crosby delivers on the field. Make no mistake, the Raiders are better with Maxx Crosby. Maybe you hated his drama. Maybe you hated the cryptic messaging. Maybe you didn't believe him when he said he wanted to stay. Like you can feel however you feel about Maxx Crosby. You cannot deny how much better the Raiders are with him. He's the only thing on defense anyone cares about. I looked up the salary cap for the remaining defenders before free agency, and if Maxx was gone, like Isaiah Polamalu was like the highest paid defender, like $7 million. Like the cupboards before Monday were bare. Nothing. Nada on defense. Atrocious. It was basically just Maxx and a bunch of ham and eggers. Also, we'll get to the free agency here in a little bit, the players we picked up, but Kwity Paye and Malcolm Kuntz as your 1 and 2 ends, I was kind of bleh. Like that's still not a good defensive line. But Maxx as your number 1, Kwity as your number 2, and Kuntz as your 3, that's a pretty good group of defensive ends right there. That's not bad. That I'm happy with. That's pretty good. That's a lot better than I expected. Number 2, how pissed off and motivated do you think Maxx Crosby is after all this? If he feels like what we feel, he was used as a pawn in the Ravens game, how mad is he going to be? He's one of the most fired up, driven human beings on earth when things are going swimmingly. Now imagine how motivated and pissed off he's going to feel if he thinks that he was wronged. If he starts looking at apartments in Baltimore, bought his daughter his Ravens jersey, he would have looked really fucking stupid in purple. Can we get that out of the way right now? Maxx Crosby in purple. Blech. Gross. Him and I have kind of the same complexion, hair a little bit, right? Roughly the same athleticism as well. I can't wear purple. My college team, San Francisco State, my wrestling team, were purple. I looked awful. Maxx Crosby looked terrible in purple. Thank God he's in silver and black. He looks far, far better. And here's another part. that I don't think people are really understanding. Leadership. The leadership that Maxx Crosby brings to the table. Look, Clint Kubiak, I like the hire. I'm excited for the hire. I'm glad we got him. It's a giant feather in Tom Brady's cap. Literally the only feather in Tom Brady's cap right now, that whatever amount of sway that he had to get Kubiak, a guy who had options, who could have coached other places, and we got him, that doesn't happen. I can't remember the last coach the Raiders got that had options somewhere else. Pete Carroll wasn't getting any offers. Antonio Pierce wasn't getting any offers. Josh McDaniels wasn't getting any other offers. Like, these guys aren't getting offers. We've been just scraping the bottom of, all right, whatever coach that the other 31 teams don't want, I guess we'll take. Not Clint Kubiak. People wanted him. We got him. That's huge. That's awesome. But he wasn't hired. He was hired to be an X's and O's guy. He was hired to get the offense back on track, to get the running game back on track, to add some excitement to the offense, and most importantly, develop Fernando Mendoza. That's why he was brought on. He might be a culture changer. He might be a leader of men. He might be a guy that can change the culture of the Raiders. He might be that. But that would be a surprise because he hasn't showed that. That's not what he was hired for. That's why he got a bunch of assistants with a lot of experience. That's why he got that assistant head coach that's older and knows the system. That's why Tom Brady and John Spytek are going to be in charge of turning the franchise around, both like culturally, because he needs to just focus on what he does. Right? He's young. He's younger than me. He's the first time the Raiders have hired a coach younger than me. First time in my life. I'm 42. First time that I have been older than the Raiders head coach. Okay. He needs to focus on the things he knows, right? And every year he'll get more experience and take on more responsibility. And every year he'll start taking over more, right? Let the GM handle personnel. Let your defensive coordinators handle the defense. Let your position coaches do their jobs. Let Tom Brady deal with the front office. Like, you focus on what you do. And as you get more experience, you'll be bigger, right? So in that realm, he needs leadership. Maxx is the leader by example, vocally, by presence. He is the leader. And Clint Kubiak's going to need that. He's going to need guys in the locker room, guys on the field that can be leaders while he's still kind of getting his feet wet as a head coach. Now, the Raiders have stars, Brock Bowers is phenomenal, but he's not the same leader as Maxx Crosby, right? He's not a rah-rah guy. He's a leader by example, leader by production, but he's not the guy that's going to grab the microphone and say, let's do this, right? He's not that type of leader. Ashton Genty is still kind of learning to, get his feet wet. He's not that leader yet, right? Colton Miller has been there longer than Maxx, but he's obviously not a vocal guy either. He just does his job and kind of, Fernando Mendoza obviously is going to eventually be the team captain and the core of the team. But again, he's not even drafted yet, right? Maxx Crosby was that leader. No one's talking about that part. How much Clint Kubiak, the Raiders in general, need Maxx Crosby to be that leader. And this is all very specific micro stuff. But on the macro, much bigger picture, just kind of me looking at the calendar of the Raiders and me just like reflecting on being a Raider fan my entire life. This is the most important part of it. If this works out and Maxx Crosby stays with the Raiders and stays for the Raiders for his entire prime, he would be the first Raider that spent his entire prime with the Raiders since Nnamdi Asomugha. Superstar, right? Like a legit, like true good producing Raider. Asomugha was drafted in 2003. For the last 23 years, we watched Khalil Mack, Amari Cooper, Darren Waller, Derek Carr, Hunter Renfrow, Josh Jacobs, Henry Ruggs. Like, obviously there's other guys that there's different reasons, right? Like Ruggs went to jail and, Hunter Renfrow got sick. But like, I have watched for the last 23 years every Raider that I really, really liked, that guy's like, not just some guy that was good for 2 years when we were like a true Raider. I've watched every single one of them spend their prime somewhere else. For the last 23 years, every good Raider we drafted, I've watched them spend their prime somewhere else. And I don't mean like they spent 11 years with the Raiders and just had 2 years somewhere else and then came back. Like Nnamdi Asomugha, right? Like he spent the 2 years with the Eagles or something, but then came back, signed his he used his entire prime with the Raiders, got paid somewhere else, wasn't as good, didn't make a Pro Bowl or anything anywhere else. I've watched every single good player the last 23 years play somewhere else in their prime. And I'm fucking sick of it. The thought of Brock Bowers in a Colts jersey makes me want to puke. The thought of Ashton Genty in a Broncos jersey makes me want to shit. How about we just keep our good players in their prime? Fuck all this draft capital, cap space, timelines, championship windows, rookie deals. That's all a thing. And we get really excited about it. And we talk about that shit nonstop. How about just the real basic premise? If the Raiders happen to draft a great player, we fucking keep them. How about that? How about that? Let's start doing that again, Raider Nation. Let's start doing that again, Mark Davis, Tom Brady, John Spytek. Let's keep our great players. We're kind of inching that way. Colton Miller, if he plays out his contract, he'll probably start declining. Then we can say that, our left, the anchor of our line, our best lineman for almost a decade, our left tackle, spent his entire we drafted him, he spent his entire time with the Raiders, and he served us great. That would be the first one in 23 years. It'd be a quarter of a century that we can say we drafted a good player and he stayed with us his whole prime. Colton Miller, hopefully Maxx Crosby's next. Hopefully after all that. Yes, I know. Osman was on the Eagles, but he was never he was there for 2 seasons, didn't make the Pro Bowl. His prime was with the Raiders. He walked away, got paid, didn't do a whole lot, came back. I'm fine with that. I'm fine if guys spend a season and a half somewhere else, don't produce. They're past their prime and they get paid somewhere. I'm not going to get mad about that. But the prime, we don't even have everyone's gone. Our best players don't even get second contracts. Khalil Mack was gone before a second contract. Josh Jacobs was gone before a second contract. Derek Carr, he still had some prime left, but Josh McDaniels wanted to make him the scapegoat, and then we got nothing for him. A franchise 10 to 14th best quarterback in the NFL, just got to walk away for nothing. With still plenty of life left in him. Just please, for the love of God, can we keep our good players? With that said, let's move on to free agency. Because it was really exciting. It was all positivity on the Autumn Windbags text chain. Look at these guys. Tyler Lindenbaum, center, 25, $81 million. Jalen Naylor, 27, $35 million. Kwity Paye, 27, $48 million. Eric Stokes, 26, $30 million. Quay Walker, 26, $40 million. Kobe Dean, 25, $36 million. Malcolm Kuntz, 27, $11 million. What do all of these players have in common? They're 25 to 27 years old, with the exception of Kuntz, all 3-year deals. You're starting to see the plan formulating. We're not going to be big players next season. Rookie quarterback, new defensive coordinator, new offense, a bunch of new players. I do think our last 2 drafts were pretty good, specifically this first Spytek draft. But before that, it was years and years and years of terrible roster management, bad draft classes, guys that just weren't ready. All this, and a lot of these are 3-year deals, but the 3rd year is kind of an option. There's some funny money there. But all these guys who got locked up for a minimum 2 years, pretty much 2 years from now, We're rocking and rolling. We're doing really well. It's almost like the Raiders went like jealous ex-girlfriend when they thought Max was going to leave. They're like, "Oh, fine, you're going to leave us? Well, we're going to sign all these awesome players." You know? It's like they're the ex that like went on a diet, got a boob job, started wearing yoga pants everywhere. It's like, "All right, you're going to break up with me? I'm going to look hot as hell." You're going to be so jealous. You're going to be checking my Instagram every night looking how hot I am. I feel like that's what the Raiders did. Because I've been saying for a while, the defense, give it time to develop correctly, but the offense you have to buy now. That's why I was all in on Tyler Lindenbaum, shattering the center record. I was shattering like what a center gets paid. Totally fine with it. Completely fine with it. He fits the scheme perfectly. I think it's the second most important position in football on offense. The second most important position on offense is the center. He's the quarterback for the line. He's the first. He touches the ball every single play. You've got a veteran, but a young one who's not giant, but he can move, which you need in Clint Kubiak's wide zone scheme. Smart player, physical. Oh yeah, another great wrestler. Him and Jackson Powers Johnson are gonna have some sweet wrestling matches. Like they should charge tickets. JPJ and Linderbaum, just best out of 3. Put on wrestling shoes. Get a wrestling mat in there, like the Bills have. Get a wrestling mat. Make them wrestle. It's going to be awesome. You go all in on that center. I love it. I would take another step further. I would go and pay for the most expensive right tackle in football right now. Because that's just how important a good line is with the rookie quarterback. I've said it a million times that it bears repeating. The economics of the Raiders, the second they draft Fernando Mendoza, are completely different. Completely different. You need to spend giant money now to get the most out of Fernando Mendoza and have him develop as quickly as possible during that rookie window. You have 5 years of paying pennies for Fernando Mendoza. He needs to be in the best situation to learn as quickly as possible with the best people around him, as fast as possible. You don't have time. I am the cheapest man on earth. Okay? You will not find a cheaper man than me. I drive a 2012 Toyota pickup that I will drive, and I won't get a new one until I give it to my daughter when she's old enough to drive. My daughter is 6. Okay? In 2036, I will be driving a 2012 pickup truck because I am just that cheap. Okay? That's how cheap I am. So with that foundation, I want you to acknowledge how big of a deal it is that I'm like, pay whatever it takes for a great center and overpay for a right tackle in free agency. Jalen Naylor, I think we get another wide receiver as well. Like we need to make that offense tits immediately because we need Mendoza to develop as fast as possible to take advantage of that championship window. And also 4 years from now, we're going to have to decide, do we pay Fernando Mendoza what's probably going to be $100 million a year? The way quarterback contracts keep going up, the way the salary cap keeps going up, 4 years from now, when the Raiders need to decide if they extend Fernando Mendoza, it's going to cost $100 million a year. We got to know for sure if that's the right move. And you don't know that if he doesn't have an all-line, he's running for his life. We don't know that if his receivers can't get open. We're not going to know that. So overpay, rush things to get the offense ready for Fernando Mendoza. The defense, you can wait. I mean, don't wait forever, but you can let the defense kind of develop on its own, which is why I'm shocked we got so many defenders. Of the 7 guys quickly signed, and Matt Gay too. Didn't make the graphic, but hey, we got a new kicker. His name is Matt Gay. Gay. My wife works in hotels, and I guess like the best hotel you can work for is the Gaylord. I was like, babe, you can't work. I am too immature for you to work at a hotel called the Gaylord. I cannot do it. I could not go to your work functions with you when you work for the Gaylord. I would snicker the entire time. I am too immature for you to work there. I'm sorry. It may ruin your career, but I would ruin it worse, right? It's going to be really hard for me to get through this season if Gay is our kicker. I'm going to try to. I'm going to try to grow up. I'm going to try to be a big boy, but it is going to be really fucking hard. But while we're on the topic, obviously with Matt Gay coming in, Daniel Carlson's going to be out. His contract was up. We knew this was going to happen. I'm not mad at Carlson for sucking. He was amazing. My thing is, thank you, Daniel Carlson, for being a great kicker as long as you were here. From 2018 to 2023, he was the shit, man. 50 yarders were automatic. He was phenomenal for like 5 seasons. Ask any team with championship aspirations and bad kicking how important a kicker is. Ask any of your buddies that have NFL teams with bad kickers. It is awful. We never had to worry about that when the Raiders were kind of contending, right? He sucked the last few years when the Raiders sucked. So what's it matter if you missed an important field goal or not? We were rooting for him to miss him towards the end of the season when the Raiders were tanking. But we never had to worry about that. Daniel Carlson was clutch for us when it mattered the most. He was awesome for a long time. Thank you, Daniel Carlson, for being great for as long as you were. All right. Now it's time to move on. But yeah, that's my priority. That's our free agency. 25, 26, 27-year-olds, all long-term contracts. And also, Maxx is 28. For those of you people saying like, well, Maxx is going to be, and a lot of national media are saying this because it's a smart thing to say, right? It makes you sound really smart when you say, well, Maxx Crosby's 20, he's going to be 29. He doesn't fit the championship window. He's only a year older than these guys. He's 28 right now, right? He's only a year older than all these young dudes that were signing to long-term deals. He's only 1 year older. Now I get it. He's played a billion more snaps because the guy never stopped. I didn't realize this. Maxx Crosby is 3 years younger than Trey Hendrickson, like 2.5 years younger. He has like 1,000 more snaps because Henderson was like kind of stashed away on the bench with the Saints for a long time before he became good. Kind of crazy. So I get it. It's not exactly apples to apples, but it's not like he grew up in a different generation than these dudes, Like they all probably listen to the same music. They all watch the same shows. They traded the same Pokemon cards. Like he's the same age as these guys. So no, he's not too old for the championship window. All the dudes we're signing are just right behind him in age. They all probably would have been in high school. They all would have been in high school at the same time, right? Linderbaum and Dean would have been freshmen. Stokes and Walker would have been sophomores. Naylor, Payne, and Kuntz would have been juniors. And Maxx would have been a senior. They could have all been on the same football team. They're all that close in age. So stop with this like, oh, he's just so far outside the championship window. It doesn't matter, blah, 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 blah. Shut up. All right, so what does this mean for the draft strategy? The Raiders, now without those draft picks that were going to come with Maxx Crosby, now have a first round, a second, a third, a fourth and fourth, a fifth, a sixth and sixth, and a seventh. And they pick near the top of every single round except for round 5. All right, because of the trade for Kenny Pickett. That sure went great, right? So not only do we have a full complement of draft picks, not only do we have the number 1 overall, 3 fourths and 2 sixths, we're like the first, second, third, or fourth pick of each round, which makes a giant difference, guys. That makes a huge difference. Picking at the top of round 2 versus the end of round 2, that's night and day difference. That's why I think the Raiders kind of jumped on that Ravens deal because, 2 first-round picks and one of them's a 14th. That's a big deal, right? If it were the Patriots, it'd be 31, Like, that's a leap year. That is a Grand Canyon of space, all right? So all these signings are great, but we desperately need depth, okay? So for people getting excited about all these signings, I'm excited too. Almost every single signing has been more or less universally thought of as great. Like Linderbaum, like, wow, they really paid a lot, but they needed that guy. He's a great player. They need to fill that hole in the offensive line. A center for a young quarterback is absolutely essential, blah, 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 blah. Right? So, but slow down a little bit, everybody, okay? The Raiders are still desperately catching up with development and depth. Like I said, the last 2 draft classes have been pretty good, right? But we need like 4 straight good draft classes and classes that fit roster scheme. When you draft in the first round, you're just looking for a superstar, right? You plug Fernando Mendoza into anything, any team is going to be successful. You plug Ashton Genty into any scheme is going to be successful. You plug Brock Bowers into any scheme is going to be successful, right? Like that's what the first round's for. You're supposed to hire pick guys that walk on water. Just they should be absolute studs with the first round pick, specifically, in the top 13 or whatever those three players are, right? You draft in the second round, and that should be a starter. You should be drafting a starter, right? Michael Mayer, Jackson Powers Johnson, like those are guys that if they don't start, it's kind of a whiff. You kind of messed up. Third round, a guy that should be getting some reps, right? A guy that, hey, if you need him to start, you can. That's not the plan, right? Fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh is when you start developing players and signing backups. And that's where the Raiders have fucked up. The Raiders, they're losing. I think I read somewhere that the entire Josh McDaniels draft class, they're all going to be gone. Not one of them still on the roster. Right? Dylan Parham, I think, is going to Jets. Someone's picking him up. But other than that, like, they're all going to be gone. There's no – Telesco had a pretty good 1, 2, and 3, but the rest of them, I'm not sure if they're going to develop, right? That's very important because, yeah, we can throw all these good players on top. We can sign – got some first-rounders coming in. The top guys of the draft are going to contribute. But you need the strong foundation of late draft picks that A, are super cheap because they're late round rookie deals, B, fit the scheme. If you're drafting a quarterback, if you're drafting a tackle in round 1, he should be scheme independent. He's just a fucking stud. He can do anything because you're drafting him that high. You draft a tackle in round 6, there's a reason why he dropped that low, right? You're either drafting a guy that can do the very specific thing you want in this offense, where like, hey, this guy's kind of undersized. He's got short arms, but he's really nimble and he can pull and he can do our zone scheme really well, right? Like he would completely fall apart on, let's say, like the Eagles or like the Rams, but on the Raiders or the Broncos, he could be useful, right? Like that's what you want to do. When you start changing schemes every season and change head coaches every season and change GMs every season, those guys that you drafted late for very specific things, the new coach maybe wants them to do something completely opposite. And so you no longer have that stable of late draft picks that you've been developing and cultivating and formulating and in competition with each other, ready to go. Like, look at like how, let's say we get a new right tackle. So then we got left tackle, left guard, center, right tackle figured out. And then we're like, okay, then there's right guard. Like, is it going to be Glaze, Grant, Rogers? If we were drafting correctly, if we were drafting well, we were drafting with the same GM and offense throughout the last 5 years, instead of having 2 or 3 guys, there'd be 10. There'd be 10 dudes that have spent the last 3-4 seasons developing, getting better, getting the scheme down, fitting the system that should be challenging for that role. Now we've got maybe 2, right? So I'm very excited about the signings. This is all good stuff. We might be better next season than maybe people anticipate, but we don't have depth. We don't have backups. We don't have developmental guys. And that's really going to show late in the season. So this is why, to me, the draft is still best player available. Even though we've got 3 starting defensive ends, even though we drafted the running back first round last season, even though we've got 2 awesome tight ends, even though we're going to have a great quarterback. Round 2, okay, obviously we're getting Fernando Mendoza in round 1. Round 2 can literally be anything other than quarterback. Seriously. Like, that's how much depth and backups we need. We need depth at every position. We sign Linderbaum. We still need a backup center. We have 2 good tight ends. We still need a good blocking tight end. If there's an awesome tight end in round 3 that fell to us and is amazing, take him. I'm dead serious. You take him. Make Brock Bowers more of a weapon and have that guy line up as more of a tight end. We are not in a position to be able to draft for need. We are not. Every single room needs starters, needs backups, needs developmental players. We have a star tight end and we have a star running back, which is awesome. Great. Still need backups. Still need developmental guys. It is best player available every single draft pick, no matter how many free agents we sign. All right. Last thing I want to get to, and then I'll get to some of your questions. Geno Smith is going to the Jets. The Raiders are getting a 6th and they trade a 7th, so we're moving up 20 spots. And because of the trade, the Raiders are going to pay some of it, and it's going to save us like $1.3 million in cap, right? So trading him means we've got $9.3 million in cap space open. There's still $16 million in dead money, and we got literally the lowest possible draft capital you can get. We traded from 7 up 20 spots into the 6th round. You literally can't get less trade value than that, trading a 6th for a 7th. And then we got basically like money you'd find in your couch cushion salary cap relief, that 1.3 million, right? This is a very clear, just get whatever you can for him trade for Geno Smith. I said this a couple of weeks ago and I was laughed at, but I stand by it. If the relationship between Geno Smith and the Raiders was even kind of salvageable, I think you should keep him, right? Because the $8 million you would save, you would need to spend on a backup quarterback anyway. If you're using all that dead money and you're eating that salary cap space, you're really not saving money because you're going to need to pay with Fernando Mendoza. You're going to need a veteran, pretty good quality backup. I don't think they're going to make Aiden O'Connell be that guy, right? Tom Brady's talked about it before, and who knows if it's going to be true or not. But Tom Brady has talked about he doesn't want his rookie quarterback starting right away. Right? You want a veteran quarterback in there to kind of show him the ropes, teach him some things, play a lot of games, maybe start early, maybe start the whole season, right? But certainly play a lot. Geno Smith could have been that guy. Geno Smith could have been that guy. And I'm with you. Like, he sucked last season. By no means am I saying, oh, no, he's actually good. Like, he was a bottom 5 quarterback last season. But if the Raiders are so much different next season than last season, right? Geno Smith was terrible with an atrocious head coach, an offensive coordinator that was handcuffed, one of the worst O-line situations in football, the worst O-line coach in football, the worst run game in football, and he was certainly a part of those problems. But under those circumstances, Geno Smith failed, right? He was pretty good in Seattle, not a superstar, but for 3 years, he was a starting NFL quarterback, tried and true starting NFL quarterback. He wasn't a joke like he was last season. And if the Raiders truly are different this upcoming season, then Geno Smith should be more like the Seattle quarterback and not the quarterback of last season. Right? That makes sense. If the situation's better offensive coordinator, certainly a better center, better weapons, Brock and Ashton a little bit better, run game gets going, culture's better. It's not like Geno Smith went from pretty good to the worst quarterback in football all by himself. It's not like he just like forgot how to play football. He didn't take that big of a physical dump. He wasn't ready. Like, again, plenty of blame for Geno Smith. Tons of it last season. But if the circumstances are different, a little bit more quarterback friendly, he could have been that starting quarterback. He could have been that backup quarterback, that bridge quarterback. Get Fernando Mendoza to kind of learn the ropes a little bit. The reason I feel like they moved on from him, where it was just such a bad situation, and it was a relationship they couldn't fix, that they're just like, fuck it, get whatever you can for him. Because they literally got like the least amount of things you can get in a trade for a player. A 6th for a 7th and like an extra $1 million in cap space, which isn't nothing, which is not nothing, right? It's like, all right, Spytech, get something for this guy. And he got something, right? Which he did, which is better than nothing, which is what you want, right? It's better than nothing, something. That's why it's like, okay, the relationship with Geno and the Raiders must have been complete dog shit for them to just get nothing to let him go, because they're going to need another backup quarterback. So here are, look how cool my AI images. Here's a look at some backup quarterbacks and their salaries and guaranteed money. This is what, like, do you want any of these guys? Because every single one of them, their guaranteed money and their total salary is comparable to what Geno Smith would have cost us. Like, would you rather have Geno Smith than any of these guys? Because we're going to need to pay more than this, right? We're going to need to pay more if you want better than these backups. Jarrett Stidham, Gardner Minshew, which we've already went through. Andy Dalton makes sense. He was making $8 million. Kenny Pickett, he's getting $4 million from the Panthers. Jameis Winston. Like, if you're like, no, Geno's worse than all these guys. Okay, really? You think Geno that played in Seattle, if the Geno that played in Seattle is still in there, and if Clint Kubiak can get it, we have one of the best backup quarterbacks in football. Because the alternative for the money we gave up to get rid of him is what you're looking at in front of you right now. And maybe you look at those guys and you're like, no, I think Jacoby Brissett would be great as a bridge quarterback. You know, Andy Dalton would be great as a bridge quarterback for what they cost. Okay, like I can, we're gonna have that conversation as the offseason goes on. But you're telling me the Geno from Seattle for what we'd have to pay and what we're giving up in cap space is worse than all these guys? Try to make that argument. I dare you. All right, boys. That's been an hour. Wow. Glad you joined me. A lot to get to. Hopefully we'll get Rory or Soto next week or as things start to continue. But I'm hoping we keep Maxx. I don't think we're going to get a deal better than the Ravens. I didn't think the Ravens deal was enough for Maxx. Hopefully we keep him. I think it's still best player available when we start going through this draft. I think the backup quarterback situation is going to be huge to be figured out. I don't know what the plan is, but it's got to be someone good that Mendoza can learn under. I don't know if it's, if they're going to make Mendoza start. I think they should start Mendoza right away. You learn more playing than on the bench. You learn more. It's quicker to get a relationship with your wide receiver if you're throwing to them in games. It's better to get the handoff and understand your center better when you're under fire in games. I think that he should start right away. And the backup quarterback is just there to be a backup and a veteran presence to help him learn. Or if they're saying, nope, Mendoza's not going to see a blade of grass his rookie year, then you need a better backup quarterback. Because the rest of the offense needs to coalesce too, right? Like Ashton Genty needs to go from, needs to be his own read guy now, right? This remade offensive line needs to be able to pick up that offense. These wide receivers need to know a whole new route tree and terminology. And if you don't have a quarterback that can at least make the offense functional, no one else is going to develop. No one, it's not just the most important thing by far is developing Fernando Mendoza. That's priority number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That's clearly the biggest thing. But it's also important to make sure everyone else is developing. And if you have a complete trash backup quarterback that can't make a read, make a call, make a throw, get a handoff correctly, then no one else can develop. So this backup quarterback situation is important now, if that's the case. With all that said, it's been a fun couple days. Boys? It was a wild couple days. All right. That's it for now. I will be back next week, or if things go crazy again, I'll go live again. But until next time, knock on wood if you're with me. Hey, you made it to the end of our video. Great job. I know you want more. Go ahead and click the next video. And if you're feeling crazy, go ahead and subscribe.